Today's date is November 6, 2014. The topic is percents, and the objective is to solve real-world problems using percents. The essential question you should be able to answer at the end of the notes is, how do you use percents to solve problems? Finding a percent of a number. A percent is equivalent to the ratio of a part to a whole. To find a percent of a number, you can write a ratio to represent the percent and find an equivalent ratio that compares to the part to whole. So the whole of a percent is always going to be 100. So let's look at example problem 1. I'm showing you both proportions and how to find the percent of a number using multiplication. To find 30% of 400, you can use proportional relationships, which is setting it up as a proportion, or multiplication. So if you look here, we have 30 over 100, which is equal to 30% in fraction form, is equal to what over the whole 400? So the 400 is the whole, and we're figuring out what part of 400 is 30%. So here we have it set up, and to get from 100 to 400, you multiply by 4. So we would do the exact same thing to the top, and your answer would be 120. So 120 is 30% of 400. Using multiplication, we have 30% of 400. Again, set up our percent as a fraction, 30 over 100. And this is of 400. So using multiplication, we would change the word of to multiplication. 30 hundredths times 400. You can cross cancel, and that turns into 1. 400 turns into 4. And again, 30 times 4 is 120. Example problem 2, I'm going to show you again using proportions. So we're going to use proportional reasoning to find 28% of 25. First, write a proportion comparing the percent to the ratio of part to whole. So we set up our 28% as a fraction, 28 over 100, equal to what of the whole 25? So notice that 25 is a factor of 100. So we find what we can multiply 25 by to get 100, which is 4. And what you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So since 25 times 4 is 100, find what number times 28 will give us 28. So since 4 times 7 gives us 28, 7 is 28% of 25. Example problem 3, I'm going to show you again using multiplication. We're going to multiply using a decimal instead of a fraction this time. So we're going to write the percent as a decimal instead of a fraction. So 5% is equal to 5 over 100, which is also equal to 5 hundredths. So now we have our percent. We're going to simply multiply 180 times our decimal 5 hundredths, and we get 9. So 5% of 180 is 9. So now we have a word problem, and we're going to find the percent when we're given a part of a whole. So let's read. The school principal spent $2,000 to buy some new computer equipment. Of this money, $120 was used to buy some new keyboards. What percent of the money was spent on keyboards? Well, our whole is the total amount of money he had to spend on the equipment, which is $2,000. The part that was spent on keyboards was $120. What percent is that of the whole $2,000? Well, our whole is $2,000. Our part is 120. We write our proportion comparing the percent to the ratio of part to whole. So we have our whole and our part, and now we need to set it up to figure out the percent. Well, again, When you're figuring out a percent, the whole is always 100. Now we just have to figure out the part. So we have to find what times 100 gives us 2,000, which is 20. So what can we multiply by 20 to get 120? So our answer is 6. So 6% of the money was spent on keyboards. Here are your 4 practice problems. Here you can use proportional reasoning, so I want you to set up a proportion for number 1. Number 2, I want you to show me multiplication, so I want you to multiply 5% times 180. And then on the 2 word problems, you are free to use either proportions or multiplication to solve for the percent. Please make sure that you complete all practice problems. If you need to re-watch the video, stop, rewind, and re-watch until you have a full understanding of how to solve problems using percent.